Yeah.
Okay, so if you, listener, are currently taking trading advice from me on WhatsApp or on Telegram, you're being scammed by someone impersonating me. If I have emailed you from a Gmail address, or I mean, honestly, from any email address to give you trading advice, which is not something that I give, you are, again, being scammed by someone impersonating me.
And probably haven't listened to all 366 episodes.
Yeah, that is true. That, I think that's why a lot of people send me these scam attempts, because they do listen to our content and they know these are things that I would never say. And so they'll say, hey, someone who is clearly not you based on what they're telling me is yeah. So I see that a lot, which is why I think we know about a lot of these, because a lot of our community is savvy enough to know that there's
for sure.
The other one is that and again, it's kind of funny, but also not, because some people probably are being scammed by this. If you found your new financial advisor in the comment section of one of my videos and they are earning you huge profits by trading crypto and stocks, again, you're being scammed. Now, I don't think it's possible. I really don't think it's possible, because a lot of these scammers operate in other countries, like outside of Canada, where like our legal system couldn't do anything anyway, or do much anyway. So I don't think that they can be stopped, which is kind of a sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. So instead, we're going to talk about what these scams look like, what they're trying to accomplish, so that listeners can avoid them. Now, these online investment scams are no joke in terms of the dollars. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre data show that $310 million were reported lost to investment fraud in 2024, but they also estimate that 90 to 95% of fraud goes unreported. So the actual numbers lost to investment scams each year are likely enormous. Now, that's from a report from the Canadian Securities Administrators. In that report, they also say that successful disruption of fraud requires intelligence that sheds light on the means and methods employed by criminals, which is exactly what we're going to try and do in this podcast episode. Now, I think that this is really important. This education about how the specifics of scams work is really important, because this type of education has been shown to reduce the effectiveness of scams. There's a 2014 study that shows that consumers at a high risk of being scammed, who were educated about one of two different scams. So they've got high risk consumers who receive an education about one of two different scams. That consumer later receives a staged scam phone call. So a fake scammer, a scammer, if you will, but someone posing as a scammer calls them to pitch them on a scam. Now, those who had been warned about the specific scam that was later pitched to them were much less likely to respond to the scam than consumers who were forewarned about a different, unrelated scam. So that specific scam education is helpful. Now, the study does find that education about the other scam did still have a positive impact. It still reduced the effectiveness of the scam, but education about the specific scam was much more helpful. So that's why we're going to talk about these specific scams instead of just talking about generalities. Now, scammers they're not very nice. I think everyone feels that, who's been scammed or has seen a scam attempt. Scammers are not very nice, but they're also not idiots. Like, you can see it. I mean, I'll tell a story I've got later, but they're not idiots. They also use techniques that leverage human emotions to build trust. I mean, we see that the most probably explicit or egregious or both example of that is the romance scams, which are just brutal.
Yep.
Or grandparent scams. Those are also brutal, exploiting the care grandparents have for their grandchildren.
We've seen them firsthand. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. And they exploit, like the ones we just mentioned, they exploit points of weakness in their victims. One of the reasons that scammers impersonate someone like me is a technique called source credibility. They take advantage of the fact that people are more likely to believe others in a position of authority and to trust organizations that they perceive as legitimate. So by posing as Ben Felix, CIO at PWL Capital, that gives them the perception of legitimacy or credibility to their potential victims. They're leveraging like we mentioned earlier with the asynchronous relationship we have with our audience, scammers try and leverage that to take advantage of that trust that we have, which makes it then easier for them to perpetrate their scam, which is just brutal. This is not just happening to me, which of course makes sense. Anyone with a little bit of credibility could have the same thing happen to them. David Rosenberg, who's a well-known financial commentator in Canada, he's been around forever, at least for as long as I've been around. He's kind of a perma bear. Kind of his commentary is sometimes kind of funny, but anyway, he is a very well-known financial commentator, whether you agree with his commentary or not. And he's recently gone public with an interview with a Globe and Mail talking about scams that have been using his name. So he's an economist and founder of Rosenberg Research. And I think like anyone that follows finance or the economy in Canada has probably at least seen his name. He's pretty prominent. So what he said is that ads appearing on Facebook and Instagram starting in March were promoting a fake investment program, falsely listing him as its administrator. Now, he had tried to report the fraud to authorities, including local police and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, but he said to the Globe and Mail that those reports largely went nowhere. So he got, I guess, some combination of frustrated and concerned and decided he was going to go public with what was happening to try and avoid people from getting scammed. So he told the Globe and Mail that since he went public with this, he's heard from several individuals who have lost money to this scam for a sum that he estimates is around $1 million so far from like people that he's heard from, which is wild. In this case, the scam is a pump and dump. So the scammers, and I've got another story about this later specific to me, but the scammers in this case were convincing investors to buy some obscure stock. So they're saying like, join the David Rosenberg trading program or whatever, which is not a real thing. And then they convince them to buy some penny stock or whatever. Now you buy some amount of money in this super illiquid stock. What happens? The price goes up. So the scammers say, look, see, our recommendation was right. You made money. And then they convince the investor to invest more money in the stock, saying that it's going to continue going up, which of course it does because it's a small illiquid stock. And then at some point when the price is high enough, the scammer, so that's the pump, the first part, getting the price to go high. And then the scammer owns the stock. That's an important piece here. So they're pumping up the stock that they own by getting people to buy more shares of it. And then once the price is nice and high, the scammer sells their holdings, which causes, again, because it's a small illiquid stock, it causes the price to dump. So just a classic
you pump, they dump.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a pretty crazy story about that. I mean, not that crazy, but an interesting story about that in a bit. So that's source credibility. The scammers also use social proof, another one of the techniques that they leverage. And we see this in the YouTube comments example that I'll describe later, where they create the perception that a lot of people have had a great experience with a fake financial advisor to try and convince some unsuspecting victim who reads those comments to engage with that fake financial advisor. The scammers also play on common behavioral biases. They play on optimism bias, where people overestimate the probability of good outcomes and underestimate bad ones. Like, oh, I'm going to make a whole bunch of money with this advisor, with this trading scheme. The halo effect, where people quickly trust someone based on a positive first impression. That's probably also related to the other ones that we just mentioned with the credibility. Present bias, where people tend to maximize short-term pleasure, like the potential for a big investment gain without fully considering the potential consequences. Regret aversion, where people worry about missing out on something like a big investment opportunity. And representativeness, where people extrapolate general conclusions from specific data points, like the recent returns of an individual stock. And that's like the pump and dump example, where scammers will say, look, the stock went up. And the victim is like, great, but it's not real. I mean, it is, but it's part of the scheme. Okay. So, but before I get into the specifics of the scams that I've seen with respect to my content, I do want to say that I like you guys, you listeners, like I appreciate you listening to our podcast and watching my videos. But it is extremely unlikely that I will contact you.
To say the least.
Unless you're a client of PWL Capital. Yeah. And even then it's rare. Like I don't have a lot of direct contact with clients at this point. we have teams of financial planners and portfolio managers who do an incredibly good job, better than I could do, dealing directly with our clients. I'm not one of those people. I'm the CIO, as people know from the introduction. If I do reach out to you, it will be from my PWL email address, and it will not be to give you trading advice or to tell you to sign up for a shady investment platform.
No.
Okay, so there are three main scams related to my YouTube content and this podcast, I guess just to my identity in general. There's investment group scams, which is similar to the Rosenberg one that I'd mentioned earlier. There are email impersonation scams that I've seen, and there are fake financial advisor pig butchering scams. So these are all like either using my name or using my YouTube channel, and the Rational Reminder podcast comment section gets these scam comments too. They're just a bit easier to deal with because there aren't as many of them. On my YouTube channel, it's like, honestly, other than turning comments off completely, I don't know how to stop them, or having a full-time employee that is only dedicated to removing scam comments.
Can you tell if they're all connected?
There's no way.
No, you
There's
can't
no way to
tell
tell
by any signals. Interesting.
No. I mean, I can recognize them within a second when I see them because they follow a similar pattern. I'll talk about that in a minute. But can an unsuspecting scam victim who just happens to stumble across one of my videos and scroll through the comments, I mean, I would assume that anybody who's spending a lot of time on finance YouTube has gotten used to seeing these scam comments and probably can identify them. But I guess it doesn't take very many people not to be able to for the scammers to be successful. Okay, so we'll start with investment group scams. These are typically conducted on encrypted chat platforms like Telegram and WhatsApp. Now, to start here, I'm not on Telegram at all. I do use WhatsApp to stay in touch with some of my friends, but like I am not texting you on WhatsApp unless you're one of my close friends. And I'm not on Telegram at all. So if you're in a Telegram group or otherwise communicating with me on Telegram, you are 100% talking to a scammer because I'm not there at all whatsoever. I mean, honestly, same as WhatsApp. Like, you know if I'm talking to you on WhatsApp because you're one of my very close friends. I don't use it very much. It's just an easy way to stay in touch with like some of my American friends from when I played basketball and a few of my Canadian friends. But yeah, that's not something I don't use that platform very much, and I don't use it at all for any professional activities. So these groups are posted online. They're shared online, and they're often they're run by accounts that use the profile picture and name of someone credible, in this case me. And what they do is they promise to include you in a community that's focused on trading stocks or crypto based on what they call rigorous research. Again, leveraging, you're getting Ben Felix's research or you're getting David Rosenberg's research. And they say that you're going to earn high returns by following the advice. Now, I was sent a link to one of these WhatsApp groups. It was actually another Canadian advisor called me and was like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about an investment group that one of my clients was involved with. And I was like, I knew immediately what it was going to be about. And so he told me that they'd joined this group and there were a bunch of people in there and that I was giving advice. And I was like, okay, yeah, it's not me. This is like, I get impersonated a lot, whatever. And the guy was like, okay, good. I was hoping that's what you were going to say, because either you were going to say that or I was going to tell you that you're going to jail. And I was like, listen, I appreciate you calling, but there's not much that I can do about it. And that's actually, that phone call is why I decided to make this, to do a video on this topic, because like, I want to do something to address that. But like real people, a Canadian person who's the client of a Canadian advisor who was able to find the real me and call me was in an investment group run by someone pretending to be me.
Wow.
Which is pretty scary. So I asked the advisor that had called me to send me the link to the group because the client had sent it to him. So I joined the group and I was contacted eventually, it took a while, by one of the group admins, and they were using my name and my picture. Like, it's such a surreal thing. When I joined, I was kicked out of the group too. I didn't use my real name or phone number, but I was kicked out of the group.
Why?
And I asked why. And they had a whole story about how they had to verify who I was, and this group is only for their friends or something like that. And so eventually I convinced them that I was a potential scam victim, and they were willing to engage after that. But when I joined the group, before I got kicked out of the group, it was open to join, but then I got booted. But there were 90 people in it. Now, I don't know if those were bots or real people, but I flipped through them. They looked to me like real people. They all had Canadian phone numbers. This is terrifying. Like if that is the case, there are 90 people in this WhatsApp group being scammed. It's really wild stuff. So
could you call them out?
No. So in the group before I was kicked out, you could only view posts from the admins. You couldn't post yourself. So I could have gone through each of those individual phone numbers before I'd gotten kicked out of the group and contacted them, but I didn't know if they were bots or who's a scammer and who's not. I don't know. And then once I got kicked out of the group, I didn't have anybody's number anymore. So finally they contact me. At first I was like, did they figure out who I am, or like, I just didn't know why I wasn't hearing from anyone. But eventually they did contact me through a direct message and chatted for a bit. They at first they were super standoffish, but then when they kind of thought I might be a victim, or a potential victim, they started asking about my investing and what I do, whatever. I said just whatever basic stuff, and then but I said I was like struggling and looking for advice, and eventually they pitched. They say they do rigorous research. And eventually they pitched me on this specific stock. So
and this is all in your name.
This person is using my name.
So they're pitching you using your name. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And I'm not telling them that I'm me, obviously. But yeah, my picture and my name. And it even says like their profile. I still have their contact information in WhatsApp. And it's like describes my, like, I think they have my old title, head of research at PWL Capital.
That's nuts.
It is nuts. The whole experience was pretty surreal. And so eventually they pitched me on a specific stock. It's this like obscure small cap stock. So I'm assuming, I'm pretty sure that it's the same thing as the Rosenberg scam, where they're going to convince me to buy this small liquid stock to pump the price so they can sell their holdings at an inflated value, causing the price to decline, just a dump.
So you didn't do your own pump, then your own dump.
Well, I thought about like, do I actually do this? Like, do I actually buy the stock? But I didn't want to go that far. And I don't know what other layers there are. Like, at some point, the guy asked me to send a statement. So like, I don't know if there's an identity theft angle to this too. Yeah. So at first, now eventually the guy turned on me because I started saying, like, hey, listen, I live close to one of your offices. Why don't I just stop by? And he got mad, started using profanity and told me to screw off, basically.
Well, that's nice of him.
Yeah. Yeah. But until before, like when they were trying to scam me, before they realized that I probably wasn't a good target, they were super smooth, super nice, super smooth. Toronto phone number. Using my name and picture, as mentioned. They wrote perfectly. I don't know if they're using ChatGPT or what, but like perfect grammar, articulate. If I didn't know factually that I was talking to someone impersonating me, the person would have, based on their writing and based on what they were saying, they might have seemed credible. A scary thing for PWL is that they, not to me, but to the other advisor that alerted me to this situation, had done the same thing and talked to the scammer. The scammer had offered them up the PWL Capital website when he asked where they worked, which is like, it's brutal. So I would hope that this goes without saying, but it clearly needs to be said because these scammers are still doing this. Nobody has the ability to consistently identify stocks that will have high returns in the future. Trading individual stocks is extremely risky, as we covered in detail in a recent episode. And anyone confident in their ability to generate high returns from stock trading that alone should be a big red flag. But especially if they want to share those high returns with you on, WhatsApp. I think the rare talent, and they are out there. We just had that episode with Martin Kramers. Those people are out there. The rare talent that is able to profit consistently in financial markets is not on WhatsApp or Telegram, sending their trading strategies to internet strangers. In this case, so I followed the stock. I added the stock to my stocks app, and I was just kind of tracking it, and it didn't do much. They had given some ridiculous price target, but it did go up after they had told me to buy it. I never actually bought it, but it did go up a bit. But I can see the date that group was created. And so I looked at from the date the group was created until some future date. The price went up a ton. And then last week, it dropped 70% in a day. So you can see you can see this thing happening in real time. You can see the group gets created, the stock gets pumped, and then the stock dumps. Well, it's crazy. And clearly, because the pump and dump price action happened, like somebody was scammed somewhere. It's brutal. So that's the trading group scam. Email impersonation scams. This was people sending emails to people posing as someone else. In my example, someone posing as me was reaching out to people who had commented on my videos. So this one's also brutal. If you comment on my video, your YouTube profile is visible, and some people have their email address available in their YouTube profile. And so the scammer is going through YouTube comments, clicking on people's profiles, seeing if their email address is visible, and then sending them emails. It's brutal. And again, it's like using my content and channel and my name to try and scam people. So in this case, the email was like thanking the viewer for their engagement on my YouTube channel and inviting them to chat. It's like ridiculous. But again, I appreciate people watching my videos and commenting on my videos very much, but I will not send you an email thanking you for commenting.
Right.
And if I do, it won't be from a Gmail address, but I won't. I just won't do that.
You just won't.
Now, this one, one of the people who had received this scam email replied initially because they weren't sure if it was actually me or not. At first, they said they thought it was pretty cool. But then the second email, it started to get fishy. So they replied, and the scammer sent a follow-up offering to share a comprehensive walkthrough, including actionable steps, key insights from the latest research, and some of the most promising investment opportunities with strong potential for returns. So again, all the hallmarks of a scam. I would guess this was another pump and dump, just based on the promising investment opportunities comment. But this one I never followed up on because the email address that was being used was reported to and shut down by Google, which is great. I mentioned earlier, but I do want to mention again that on impersonation, so that was an email, but I have heard from people who've gotten DMs, Twitter DMs with voice notes using my voice, an AI impersonation of my voice, trying to convince people of my identity.
Wild.
And they could probably do it with video too. Like I've seen great realistic video avatars. So, if I ever DM you a video trying to convince you to buy a specific stock, you should know it's not me. Okay. So these scams are all bad, brutal. But this last one drives me completely nuts. It's the YouTube comment section, fake financial advisor. I'm pretty sure pig butchering scam. I'll talk about what that is later. These ones are just like, they drive me nuts. They drive me completely nuts because they will not go away. Every time I see them, when I'm reading through YouTube comments, I report them and block the user, but it doesn't matter because they're just going around. They go and create like computer generated usernames and accounts, and it's impossible to stop them.
Is this all like automatic fraud that's going on, or is there someone behind it, do you think?
Oh, there's someone behind it, 100%. I don't know who or where or how they're doing it, but yeah, it's someone somewhere is doing it. I mean, I interact with them. This is another one where I followed up on the scam to see what was going on here. These ones, in many cases, they're identifiable easily because they're very general comments. Like it'll start off with a very generic statement, but I have seen some more recently that are very specific to the content. Like the one on individual stock risk that we did recently. There are some of these scam comments that were like, they'll have a few words or sentences that are related to the video, and then they get into the scam content. But they're still usually pretty generic, and they often reference either a loss, like I lost $200,000, or a specific dollar amount that they've achieved. Like I just hit $3 million or whatever. Now I didn't dig into the psychology there, but I'm guessing there's some psychology behind mentioning those specific dollar amounts because they all seem to do that. clearly like the scammers have figured out some psychology related to that. It must be working or they wouldn't be doing it. So here's one example of one of these scam comments. You can see how like generic it is. So this is a quote from the scam comment. "This video really hit home for me. Retirement has been such a rewarding chapter of my life. My wife and I worked hard to get here and we're incredibly thankful for where we are today. Now we're debt-free with a net worth of over $3 million. There's the specific dollar number. And that investment income supports us every week." Now, this was on my video on the historical comparison of renting versus owning in Canada. So in this case, it's not at all relevant to the content. It's just super generic. But if you're reading through the comments and you see this, you might wonder how this person was so financially successful. And so this is where their so-called financial advisor comes in. It's always a very specific full name. And that's because, I think it's because links are typically caught in YouTube spam comment filters. Like I have a filter where any link can't be posted. It'll automatically get flagged. And I never check the flagged comments. So like if it's got a link, it's gone. It's never going to see the light of day. So the scammers have figured that out. They don't post links. They post full names, first, middle, and last name of the supposed advisor. Because then when you go and search it on Google, you're not going to get a whole bunch of hits. And so what they do is make a website using that full name, so that searching that name brings you to a website. And that website is going to list credentials, testimonials, awards, licenses, and all that kind of stuff. It's all fake. One really tricky thing that they do, though, and I haven't validated that they do always do this, but I have looked at a few where they did do this. They'll use the name of an actual registered investment professional so that the name shows up in registration searches. These are mostly US based, so it'll be like FINRA, but they'll link out to FINRA Broker Check. So they'll have this fake scam website with fake contact information and everything like that. But you can click on the FINRA Broker Check link and it'll take you to the actual page for the real advisor with this name. Super, super sneaky.
So the name's not fake. The person is fake.
Correct. Well, again, they're just impersonating a real person. Now that specifically, likewise with using my name, I guess, is really problematic because one of the things that you can always do, and we've said this in the podcast many times, Cameron, if you want to verify whether someone offering you investment advice is legitimate, you can look them up on a regulatory website. You can see if they are registered to give investment advice. In Canada, we have aretheyregistered.ca. So you can search for the registration of anyone registered with securities regulators in Canada. But in the case of this fraudulent advisor or my WhatsApp and email impersonator, that stuff doesn't really help because you won't look me up and yeah, I'm real, I'm registered. But if you're not talking to the real me, it doesn't help. What I would say is that professional financial advisors will probably not communicate with you through WhatsApp or Telegram or an email address that is not associated with a registered firm.
Probably not.
Probably not. And if in doubt, you can, like if you go to aretheyregistered.ca and look me up or look Cameron up, you'll see the contact information with the securities regulator for PWL Capital. And you can call that phone number and verify whether whatever interaction you're having is legitimate. Now, after years of seeing these comments, I recently decided that I would contact one and see what happens. So I went on this fraudulent website, and again, if anyone's concerned about security, I did use a throwaway email address from a privacy-focused email provider, so I'm not concerned about them finding the real me. But I reached out to one of these fake advisors and just said like, "Hey, I saw your name online. I was wondering how this works," something like that. They asked me if I've ever worked with a financial advisor before. They asked me what active trading accounts I have. They asked my annual income and whether I'm an aggressive or reserved investor, the purpose of my investment, and my investment budget. It's pretty detailed. Wow. So I replied. And they told me that they're taking their next batch of clients in Q2 2025 and that I could join that batch to begin investing and earning. And the pitch was that they are a multi-market broker that trades across 3 different markets while majoring in digital currencies. Of course. So I said I was interested, of course. And they sent me a PDF detailing the offering. And again, if anyone's concerned about security, I did not open the PDF. I only previewed it through that secured, privacy-focused email provider. Didn't download it. That's for anyone not aware that PDFs can contain malicious code. So I have no idea what the actual scam is. Is it to get me to download the PDF? Well, I didn't do that, but it is worth being careful because PDFs can contain viruses and malicious code. Now, this PDF that I received, it is honestly incredible. It's like a masterclass in what to look out for in an investment scam.
Wow.
It contains, sorry for this word, Cameron, it contains huge amounts of financial bullshit. Now, if anyone, Cameron included, cringes at me using that word,
Good.
it is defined in a 2022 academic paper, individual differences in susceptibility to financial bullshit, as seemingly impressive verbal financial assertions that are presented as true and meaningful, but are actually meaningless. So listen to this. This is wild to read. So this is an explanation of the trading strategy from this advisor. Are you ready?
Fire away.
Strap in. Okay. The quid pro quo strategy functions through a simple economic law of substitute of goods, where if goods A and goods B are substitutes, a decrease in demand of goods A will result to an increase in demand for goods B. Similarly, taking into consideration the stock market and digital currency market are both substitutes, as the typo there, as they offer similar services in the financial market, the economic law of substitutes will equally apply. Now, those words assembled in that way mean absolutely nothing, but they could sound smart. And hilariously, on this page of this PDF brochure, they have that trading strategy, and then underneath it, with no explanation for why, they've got a whole bunch of pictures of stock charts that happen to have gone up over some period of time. It's just completely ludicrous. That type of text and the stocks going up probably do act as a filter where people without the financial knowledge to realize that it's bullshit are prime candidates for being scammed.
Yeah.
This PDF also includes another classic scam attribute. It promises guaranteed profit without risk. Now, of course, most investors want to earn high returns, but they're concerned about losing money. The reality in financial markets, as listeners know, is that if you want the expectation of earning higher returns, you need to be willing to take more risk. Diversification can certainly mitigate the risk of total loss, like you get with an index fund. Unlikely for a total market index fund to go to zero, but even the broadly diversified equity index fund can go through double-digit percentage point drops pretty regularly, and it may take years to recover, although that hasn't been the recent experience. But historically, there have been many drawdowns that lasted for a very long time. That's just the reality of investing in risky assets. But humans find losses painful. And there are tons of, we've talked about many of these in the podcast, there are lots of overpriced and otherwise suboptimal financial products that prey on this concern by promising investors downside protection. In this case, the advisor is offering a guaranteed monthly profit, listen to this, between 5% and 10%, depending on the amount of investment capital and whether you choose a passive or aggressive investment approach.
Can you imagine?
I know. So let's take a moment with that information. If we take the lower end, 5% per month, so that must be for the passive approach, not the aggressive one. I don't know. That's an annual return of 80%, which is pretty good. Yeah. Now, like for context on how good that is, the most successful hedge fund in history, or at least one of them, one of the most publicly known ones, the Renaissance Technologies Medallion Fund, which has been closed, by the way, to outside investors since 1993, has annualized historical returns around 66% before fees and 40% after fees, at least as of when Greg Zuckerman, who we've had in this podcast, wrote his book that detailed the history of that fund and its performance. Now, I would say that it is implausible that Daisy on YouTube, who's the name of the commenter that wrote the comment we were talking about earlier, has just happened to find something better than the Renaissance Technologies Medallion Fund and is excited to tell you about it in a YouTube comment. Actually guaranteed returns, like properly guaranteed, at least in nominal terms, available through guaranteed investment certificates in Canada or certificates of deposit in the US are way lower, like Canadian banks GIC rates, depending on how long you're locking in for, are like in the 3 to 4% range. Last time I checked, they're not 80%. Other than the guaranteed 80% returns, the other big red flag with this one is the claim that there's no downside risk. So they're guaranteeing the 5%, but the PDF also says that the broker has an alternative insurance that covers for any losses incurred while trading for a client.
Wow, that's impressive.
Should the profit realized in a month fall below the agreed percentage, this insurance will also make up the deficit. Now that, of course, is not a real thing.
And people fall for this. Amazing.
They must. The PDF finishes with a list of benefits of working with this advisor that remind me of the scene from Step Brothers where they pitch prestige worldwide. You know what I'm talking about? It's ridiculous. They say all these like loosely related financial and business terms.
Prestige worldwide. The first word in entertainment.
First word.
Management.
Financial portfolios. Insurance.
Computers.
Black leather gloves.
Research and development. Putting in the man hours to study the science of what you need.
Last week, we put liquid paper on a bee. And it died.
Security.
Security.
And investors? Possibly you.
Anyway, this document finishes with something similar where it's like retirement, mortgages, crowdfunding, investment advising, tax avoidance, college funds. It's just hilarious. Now, for the record, real quick, tax avoidance is not something a credible financial planner is going to offer to anyone. Tax minimization stems from good financial planning and tax planning, but tax avoidance is inconsistent with the overall spirit of the law. Just another little red flag there. So I was, of course, interested in signing up for these 80% returns. So I asked for the next step after getting that PDF. I was sent another PDF requesting a huge amount of personal information, and I was told to sign up for 3 different trading platforms. 2 of them were actual trading platforms. One was a crypto platform, one was a stock trading platform. And one of them was an extremely sketchy, presumably fraudulent trading platform. Now it was explained to me that how this works is that the advisor would be copy trading my accounts. Now the next step would have been for me to open these accounts, add money to them, but I didn't actually go to that step because I didn't actually want to get scammed.
So what do you mean by copy trading?
So they're trading in their accounts, and then my accounts are set up in a way that copies the trades that they're making.
But they've got trading authority on your account.
I didn't dig into that. She that was posing as a woman. They told me that that they wouldn't have control of my accounts, but they would be copy trading. So I didn't get this far to see how the mechanics would actually work. Yeah. And now, what would have happened, I think, based on my knowledge of scams, is that the fraudulent account, the clearly the sketchy platform that they told me to sign up for, would have likely accrued large profits, the appearance of large profits, and I would have been asked to add more money to that account, likely with a promise of doing so would increase my returns, and then that would continue until I wanted to withdraw funds, at which point you realize that you've been scammed. And then at that point, it's too late. So that's the pig butchering scam. They build trust, convince you that you're earning large profits, get you to add more funds, and then take you to slaughter. I don't know. What do you think so far?
It's all crazy. It's amazing to me that people fall for this. It's amazing that you could actually set up an account on a legitimate platform and that doesn't get caught somehow. Like that's amazing to me.
You mean like that you can set it up on YouTube?
No, that you could set up a legitimate account on some sort of trading platform and someone else is doing copy trades on that account in your name. But you need to find out what the mechanics are because there's certain know your client regulations that we all have to follow.
Yeah, well, I don't know, and I don't know if they would have actually done anything in the legitimate accounts. Maybe all the fraudulent activity would have happened in the sketchy account. I didn't get that far. Maybe someone with expertise in scams can tell us what would have happened next.
But it's so interesting that there's people out there that could fall for this under your likeness, because if you're a regular listener or follower of your material, you would know that it's not possible. So maybe there's enough brand credibility around you that other people, and you're right, all it takes is one. Like one person falls for it for enough money, it's all worthwhile. You just keep hunting for the person who's going to put in $1 million or whatever amount of money. It's still mind-boggling to me. And that's my earlier comment about, I go to so much now with this assumption that it's a fake, right? Because it's so hard to tell now what's real and what's fake.
Yep. It's brutal. Yeah. So scams are unfortunately part of life. They've been around forever and they're not going anywhere. And as I mentioned earlier, it seems to be next to impossible to stop them. One of the best defenses against scams, as we mentioned earlier, is knowledge of scams. If you know what the scammers are trying to do, you'll be able to avoid getting sucked into their traps. Now, unfortunately, the people who most need to hear this information will probably never listen to this episode. To address this, one of the relatively recent regulatory innovations in Canada, designed in part to stop scams, is the Trusted Contact Person, or TCP. So right now in Canada, licensed portfolio managers and investment advisors are required to ask. It's not a requirement for the client to have one, but you're required to ask the client to name a trusted contact person. And that is a person that the client authorizes to be contacted if their advisor is concerned that the client is being financially exploited, among a few other reasons, like if they're unable to contact them for some other reason. So the trusted contact person they don't have authority to trade in your accounts or give any orders or anything like that, but they're a third party that you, the client, trust that the advisor can contact if they have concerns. So I would say that if a listener or a close family member of a listener or a client of PWL is working with an advisor, which obviously a client would be, and does not have a trusted contact person, we likely would have asked you if you would like to have one. But if you don't have one, I think it's definitely worth having, just as a safeguard for stuff like this. And I think for elderly clients, and we talked about this with Rob Carrick about how they're being often underserved by the financial industry, just with the complexity of being able to actually contact someone. I think, particularly in that case, having a trusted contact person is a really nice additional layer of protection.